Very well, and on this interactive segment, as I had mentioned earlier, we're looking at the addressing youth employability skills gap, and joining me on set is Phillip Pande. Phillip Pande is Executive Director of Corporate Career Academy. Karibu sana to the program.
Thank you very much, Ben.
I'm looking at the skills that the youth have as we and entering the job market, and it has not been a walk in the park. A lot are learned, but unfortunately, because of some of the things like mismatch of skills and on-job requirements. Can you address this?
Very well, Ben. It's true that there is a huge discordance between the industry and academia, or training institutions for that matter. And just last year, during our East African Employability Summit, the inaugural summit, we had the Federation of Kenya Employers unveiling some skill survey, which again pointed at the need for young people to reskill, retool themselves much as they're educated. There is a difference to be educated and to be skilled, because skills are specific to particular job requirements, particular assignments, like what you're doing here in the studio. You could have gone to school, but you're not skilled enough to do what the employer requires you to do. And not just the FKE survey. There have been many other studies, including the World Bank's Enterprise Survey in 2015. As Corporate Career Academy, we've looked into details, some mind-boggling figures, especially by the Inter-University Council for East Africa, which in 2014 unraveled that at least 56% of our graduates in East Africa were not ready for the job market, and they were pointed at specific skills that were to do with workplace skills, people skills, interpersonal relationships, and just being dependable and reliable in terms of what you're given to do and to accomplish as an individual. And so over time we are seeing a number of people coming into the market. In Kenya, we're talking about 1 million every year graduating from our TVETs and training institutions, universities, seeking for employment. But again, not all of them can get work. But even those that get work, the employers are still saying that they don't fit the bill, they don't meet the demand. So there is really a huge need to look into that.
And many jobs by the year 2030 will require ICT skills. How is Kenya as a country preparing for this?
Well, there is a huge shift in the workspace today. You hear people wanting to work remotely or work from home, which basically tells that you are possibly have access to internet and you have access to a computer or a device that would allow you to work remotely and collaborate with people elsewhere. We've seen the government of the day today campaigning and advocating for digital jobs. And we are at the advent of the CBC, the new curriculum that has a lot of issues to catch up with. For example, we've advocated for STEM, and particularly digital skills would be found in the aspect of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, where you have a lot to do with ICT, IT, and access to technology. While we say that IT and the digital pathways are the way to go, there is still really a huge need to focus on the arts, for example. The creative industry in Kenya is underdeveloped, under-pursued, even in the East African context. So, yes, we must live to the reality of the day on the shift and the disruption of artificial intelligence, or AI, and look at that with the interplay between that and digital opportunities. It has become more of a necessity that we must all be equipped in terms of learning computer skills, in terms of being able to operate a gadget as basic as a mobile phone, and work with people across the globe. You can't work remotely or work from home when you are not tech savvy. So tech has become part and parcel of humanity, just like one of the basics languages of communicating. You'd say that you need ICT and tech much as you need English to communicate at workplace.
Yeah, and Phillip, you've mentioned TVETs, and looking at the TVET space for the last couple of years, it's quite robust now, and a lot of support, especially from the government and other institutions. How can we leverage on that, on TVETs, to wipe away unemployment among the youth in the country?
Well, Ben, as I mentioned, last year we had the privilege of hosting the inaugural East African Employability Summit. We are doing a second one this October from 29th to 30th at the KICC. And during that inaugural summit, the Director General of TVET Authority in Kenya, Dr. Langat, explained that there is a deficit in the numbers that we send to our TVETs. In 1 out of every person that we send to the universities, we need 4 more to join the TVET institutions, but we're still not living up to that reality. But the good news is, if you look at the KUPS admission, that's the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Services, you'll see a shift in terms of the numbers. Particular people who have qualified for degree courses are not selecting degree courses, but are opting for TVET courses or mid-level colleges, including KMTC, people opting to do nurses. Nursing as a course, people opting to do more technical courses. And it's not just that local shift. In the East African community, we have the ESTRIP program that is supported by the World Bank, working with a number of countries, Ethiopia, Kenya, I think Tanzania is included, to build capacities of TVETs and to ensure that they are able to equip them adequately to serve the need and to serve the population. The African Development Bank, again, is working with the government of Kenya, several other countries, to equip TVETs and make them centers of excellence. In Kenya, for example, I know that a number of TVETs are under that program, in which they're building not just the infrastructure, but also training personnel to be able to train young people and to adequately give skills that would be what we're calling the 21st century skills that are needed to solve the 21st century problems. So this shift in TVET helps in many ways. One, it helps to serve the population that would otherwise not get into the university. The percentage of those who qualify for the university courses very low. For example, in Kenya, you're talking about less than 10%. In Africa, we're talking about a population of 20% without only 20% of us with post-secondary education, which means that a dominant 80% did not go anywhere post their secondary education. So in this conundrum, there is really need to take care of everybody. And when we're talking about on-demand skills, then we know that TVETs, for example, are centers of excellence per se in terms of equipping people and all those courses, all those solutions that we need to run our homes, to run our offices, to run our businesses, and to run an economy. I looked at the Federation of Kenya Employers survey on skills. There's still a need to get, of course, 43% of workers with degrees, 25% with diplomas and so forth. And so as that mix keeps on growing, we hope that ultimately we are going to have more of skilled persons from TVETs to access opportunities. We've seen the model of funding in Kenya today. A lot is talked about in terms of access to university education than TVET. So whereas there is a focus that we should all have degrees, we should all have masters, it is fundamental that each and every person has a skill, because the skill is more fundamental than just going to school and getting accolades. It is important that when you come out of institutions, you should be able to solve problems.
It's a good thing you're mentioning training. You're a trainer yourself. Should regular training be enforced to ensure that we have an update of skills, just more or less like the same way we update our systems and even computers and even phones?
Yeah, we are talking about regular training as an ongoing process by employers. Anybody that is an employer should always have refresher courses, upgrading skills, retooling workers to fit within the transformation in the 21st century, competing with technology, competing with AI, for example. If you are an ordinary banker that would be doing reconciliations, so bank reconciliations in the night when people have gone back home to sleep, you realize that that job is bit by bit going away by banks automating processes, ensuring that robots, for example, are able to reconcile bank transactions within you know, in a twinkle of an eye, a few seconds, that work could be done. Otherwise, you'll need ordinarily 3 people working overnight to just reconcile a branch transaction. Now, in this need to keep training people, therefore, if you had somebody, for example, working as helping in reconciliation, you don't want to make them redundant. You want to redeploy them or take them to other places where they would be useful, and so it would call for training. But it's not just continuous training at workplace. It's not just people learning skills virtually in on the internet or through other tools that are available. We have advocated hugely for the reform of our curricula, so that from ground up you're already able to build people that are built for the industry and that are ready for industry. I'll tell you, for example, you'll find courses in Kenya today, in East Africa, that do not have attachment or do not have internship. So it means that you're training for 4 years or 5 years, then direct to the workplace without ever stepping foot into a work environment. What does it mean? That probably somebody has never interacted with professionals at all. So are we able to review our curriculum? And as one of the recommendations of last year's summit, curricular reform and working closely with industry to get industry contribution into how we train should be very vital to inform how people graduate or how people are skilled in our institutions, both from basic and tertiary institutions. But again, like you say, it is fundamental for organizations, for employers, to keep training, to keep mentoring, and to keep supporting the employees to earn new skills.
And as we wrap up, what are the challenges and opportunities in partnering with the private sector? We're also in the private sector.
Yes.
And in addressing this employment gaps that we have in the country.
Yes. So the employability skills gap is not a government affair, neither is it an academic affair. And it can also not be apportioned to the industry alone. So as Corporate Career Academy, we are the single institution across East Africa, and I would say Africa today, that is organizing a forum, a summit that brings everybody on board, academia, development partners, those that are into the youth employment entrepreneurship space, people working on access to opportunities and jobs for the youth, to cross-pollinate ideas and build consensus on how learning institutions, out-of-school institutions, are able to train and facilitate transition to industry. Governments spend a lot of money into education. For example, education today accounts for over 30% of our budget. But are we guaranteeing employment? Are we guaranteeing that everybody that we've spent money on is going to end up skilled enough to get employment? So the hugest opportunity that we are offering is for stakeholders to come and convene on this. The second is giving the private sector an opportunity to talk directly to government and the trainers who are the academic institutions and the training sports, because the VCs, the directors, career services, the deans and all these people are arriving in a room. The second thing, the third, which is fundamental, because this is East Africa wide, we've talked about a common market, but we are forgetting about a common demographic, which is the youth. We are forgetting about the common education that we've talked about. And therefore, mobility of skills is quite an important conversation that the East Africa community must have, that for the integration, the full integration to be achieved, for us to talk about a common market, we must talk about the common demographics with the common skills that are transferable from Kenya to Uganda to all the way to Congo. The challenge that we are still experiencing, that as a small organization, Corporate Career Academy is a social enterprise registered by the Social Enterprise Society of Kenya. We are a member of the East African Business Council. The buy-in and stakeholder communications are still low, and we are looking to an opportunity where we are able to partner with government more strategically. We are looking at opportunity where we are able to partner with the development space, and to have not just this summit as a success on the 28th and 29th, and on the 30th of October, but to continue this conversation. We've helped over 18 institutions, universities and colleges, to entrench offices of career services. Are we able to do that with government? Are we able to do that with private sector, so that we churn graduates and persons that have capacity to solve the challenges that we experience as Kenya, as East Africa, as the continent of Africa, because we know for a fact that the youth bulge, the population growth here, the demographic shifts is affecting how we are going to produce, how we are going to govern, and how we are going to live as a continent, at least for the next 100 years.
Thank you indeed so much. That is Phillip Pande.